What didn't happen last year? And in the wider world of politics and pop culture, even more happened in a year where hate speech and violent rhetoric was at its most notable in my lifetime. So many different forms of art combated this hate and gave us hope when we needed it the most. Music, TV, video games, comics, and films all gave us an escape to ease our minds or told us, yeah, things are bad, but you can change that. And that's been my mindset going into the new year. I live in constant fear of the Western descent towards fascism. Donald Trump spreads fear across the line and kills the innocent. But I digress. The club is bumping, the ladies look good, the alcohol's flowing. There's so much pain in the world, but not in this room. Yeah, this quote comes from a Russian guy like a decade ago. I'm just saying, I've matured a lot over 2025 and gained more insight on things I'd never had before. But that's not what you're here for. You're here to see where Sinners ranked in a performative twinkish letterbox ranking. 2025 was a weird year for Hollywood as a whole, and 2026 doesn't look any better. But judging just by the films that were released this year, we were eating good. Even if the best of the best didn't make big bank and the big bank films were less than great. Despite that, I think filmmaking as a medium really had some high highs. But before we can get to those, here's some honorable mentions. I'm just listing everything off Letterboxd, so don't hate me. A24's The Legend of Ochi had phenomenal puppetry. The Long Walk was an engaging social commentary on top of being a really good thriller. Paddington in Peru, in all honesty, was one of my favorite theater experiences this year with a big group. First Steps was another right step for Marvel. Bad Guys 2 had some phenomenal art direction, as did Ballerina, another solid addition to the John Wick verse. F1 was a fast-paced blast. Killer of Killers was a treat for my eyes. Dogman was a love letter to one of my favorite childhood books. And Good Boy was an even better dog movie and an honestly hypnotic horror film. If you think about it though, Dogman has potential for horror, but let's not give it the blood and honey treatment. Jonah Feingold dropped a trilogy of offbeat New York-based rom-coms that are all free to watch here on YouTube, and they're all incredibly charming. Bob Trevino Likes It is a film I've heard no one talk about, but it had me in tears by the end. Barbie Ferreira of Euphoria and John Leguizamo both give great performances paired with a moving script and directing from Tracy Lehman. Thunderbolts is honestly the best Marvel has been since Infinity War, besides Far From Home, Guardians 3, and Loki, and it's not even close. This year overall was a great year for Marvel, and 2026, besides Doomsday, really has me excited for them. Final Reckoning was a fantastic finale to the Mission Impossible franchise, though it definitely isn't the strongest in the series. I watched them all for the first time this year and really fell in love with them. On the contrary, K-pop Demon Hunters was one I didn't expect the world to fall in love with, but I'm honestly so glad it did. It's one of the biggest films of the year and one of two that really defined cinema. The Naked Gun was one of my favorite comedies of the decade so far. And last but most certainly not least, just shy of the top 10, was Edgar Wright, who popped off with The Running Man, even if he isn't as strong here as he is with every other film he's done. Also shout out to One Battle After Another, Hamnet, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Warfare, Twin List, No Other Choice, I Am Frank Elda, Arco, Mickey 17, and Sentimental Value. All films I've heard nothing but great things about that I have not been able to watch, but hopefully will by the time award season rolls around. Horror is a genre that I'm still relatively new to. Most of the horror I got growing up only came from YouTube horror shorts or anything I was already a fan of that dived into the media, and I really started watching horror for the first time this year. And honestly, Weapons is exactly what I love about horror. It's slow burn, it's creative, it's blood-boilingly tense, it's somewhat comedic when it needs to be, and low-key terrifying. This review in its entirety is going to be completely spoiler-free, but there is one scene involving scissors and hair that had me kicking my feet in the air. Zach Cregger is an incredible director, and though I haven't seen Barbarian, I can confidently say he knows how to do effective horror. The jump scares work wonders here, and I typically hate jump scares. But there's a lot of solid imagery in this that makes them work, and that imagery has become iconic only months after release, like the running kids pose or Aunt Gladys. And speaking of Amy Madigan, oh dude, she has to have given one of the best performances of the year. I'm so happy she got that Critics' Choice Awards, and honestly, I really hope she can win an Oscar. First off, you can tell this video was written before the Oscar came out. 2, can you hear the excitement in my voice right now? The character design is so bold and such a swing for the fences, and it pays off in creating a memorable villain in an already memorable film. She's honestly my second favorite villain of the year and one of my favorite performances overall. And the way the climax pays off with her, pitch perfect. It's hard to watch, it's extremely gruesome, and it adds to the trauma faced by the entire cast here. I'm gonna level for a minute. I did not understand this film. To an extent, I still don't, but I like what it has to say about grief and addiction, as this film was a way for Zach Kreger to process both his friend Trevor Moore's death in 2021 and his recovery and family history with alcoholism. There's heavy subjects, and they're handled in an appropriate and effective way for a modern horror film. But there's plenty of moments where we get to slow down and feel these themes, the effects of grief and addiction on the characters, and the meta commentary of the film as a whole. There's a lot to break down in this film, and I'm not even addressing the allegory for shootings here that Making Media Matter discussed in their video essay, but from what I do get out of it, it's a touching film about recovery from such traumatic events, whether they be alcoholism, addiction, child maltreatment, things, or any other interpretation. There's layers to this film, and I still haven't peeled them back months after watching. The only major complaint I have with this film is how abrupt the ending is, but I think the last words we hear are a rough sting to end this off on, and I think it really shakes you up, and it makes you understand all at once what this film is trying to say on a deeper level. Weapons is not going to be for everyone, but if you're looking to get into horror or just want to watch more movies from this year, please seek it out. I'm excited to see what Kreger does in the future, but please don't ever do worse than that scissor scene. No one's going to touch my hair again. To be frank, I don't have that much to say about the Phoenician scheme, not because there isn't anything to analyze with this film, but just because it's a fun, bite-sized, heartfelt Wes Anderson film that, I haven't rewatched it since it first came out, but it stuck with me a fair bit. Enough to get this high, you know? Anderson's style in this movie isn't anything all too different, but he still manages to create some eye-popping imagery with his color choices, visual symmetry, costumes, set designs, and quick-witted quirk. Never did I think I'd see Tom Hanks and Bryan Cranston play ball against Benicio del Toro, but I'm glad I did. These are our next LeBrons, and I couldn't be happier. The one thing I love most about this film is actually its religious themes, contrasting with his last film, Asteroid City, which approaches religion and the idea of any transcendent power from a primarily pessimistic perspective. This one shows how religious upbringings can stick with a person and how some people submit to a religion despite contradictions with personal beliefs. We see Del Toro's character accept his daughter's Catholic beliefs and even convert to them as a way to ask for forgiveness for all his mistakes, even though his personal morals contradict with the idea of religion, a feeling I know I and several others, even other very religious people, can sympathize with and see ourselves in. It's not a religious film overall, but it's one that definitely has religious undertones. And I think it's a healthy message. It's a unique standpoint, one that I love to see in a semi-mainstream film like this. Anderson roughly believes in God, being raised in an Episcopalian high school, because he believes, quote, if you grow up being given this religion, it's sort of always there. On top of its religious themes, it's also an engaging story about reconcilement and espionage. Seeing Corridor reunite with his daughter, played by Mia Threppleton, is pretty moving, and the unlikely trio formed by the two of them and Michael Cera is one of my favorite leading groups this year. The only other trios that come to my mind are the Justice Gang and Huntrix. All in all, it's a great ensemble piece with great Andersonisms and even greater themes. This is such a stupid video. I already got a whole video up about Lost in Starlight, but I could honestly go on. It's insane that this is director Han Ji-won's sophomore feature film, and it's this good. The directing is top-notch, with so many sequences having stunning 2D animation in this futuristic sci-fi setting reimagined in Korea. But despite the grand stakes and setting, it's a humane story about love, loss, fear, and overcoming self-doubt. Nan-young and Jae are both great leads, each with an entertaining arc and good writing. The plot never falls into the cliches of the romance genre, and the one time they do get in an overblown fight with one another, you understand where both are coming from. Not because of some dumb miscommunication, but because it's fueled by anxiety and fear and stress and the idea that Nan-young won't come back home from her space trip. Their romance feels so real and genuine, and it makes you wonder what these writers went through. For an animated film to have such a deep look into a relationship like this is great for young people to see. Both characters are flawed, but they find peace in one another and respect each other as people with dreams and ambitions, but also with their own inadequacies and worries. And the really crazy part? This was both Nan Young and Jay's voice actors' first time doing voice acting.
What?
This film feels like a hidden gem among everything that's come out this year, so please find time to watch it on Netflix. An absolute joy to watch that will either have you in tears by the end or have you pretty close. A top tier animated film, and one that honestly deserves award recognition this season. I knew from the premise alone that I'd love Eternity, but it still managed to exceed my expectations. The idea of a love triangle in the afterlife with Elizabeth Olsen having to choose who to spend eternity with is an intriguing idea, and there's room for a lot of deep psychological commentary about life and death. But throughout its runtime, it doesn't really touch on those ideas. If anything, it kind of ignores them entirely to do its own thing, and focus more on ideas of deconstructing love, loss, guilt, and even how people will make decisions that don't benefit them, but ultimately benefit the people they love. And to them, that's love in and of itself, and that's enough. There's so much to talk about with this film's portrayal of love as a construct and the regret of choosing between different people to spend your, eternity with. The cast also really helps you feel the weight of everything here. Elizabeth Olsen specifically really gives it her all. The last half hour with her is particularly moving, even if it is a fair bit predictable what's gonna happen. I think everything throughout this film builds naturally though, and the decisions made never feel irrational. They make sense when given the circumstances and characters. We had two actually great romance films this year and neither are formulaic. Someone cooked here. Besides Olsen, the rest of the cast is also great. I love Miles Teller and Callum Turner throughout. They have great rivalry and great chemistry together. I love the scene where they're both drunk and start to genuinely compliment one another. It's super sweet. Divine Jara Randolph is great with her supporting performance, consistently giving some sort of reaction to the love triangle playing out, acting almost as a surrogate for the audience, as does John Early. The concept is so unique and the story we get out of it is so genuine, it's just something you have to watch. And if you're anything like me, I guarantee that ending will hit harder than a bag of pretzels. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. Bottom line, if you like rom-coms with inventive storytelling, great writing, stellar acting across the board, and such attention to detail with its world and characters, you'll eat this up. I'm not all that familiar with Guillermo del Toro, though from what I've seen of his career, he's consistently been an aficionado with every project tied to his name. Pacific Rim and Pinocchio are phenomenal and have great direction from him, and films he's supported, like The Book of Life and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, are almost always great. And his latest film, Frankenstein, is all that and a bag of bloody body parts. This movie is very gory and I really love it. I have not read the book, but this feels like an adaptation that respects and loves the material it's pulling from, while not being afraid to try new things to develop the story in different ways. The production design, the writing, Del Toro's directorial flair, the performances, and the overall language of the film tell you how much it respects Mary Shelley's original book, while also willing to take some new creative swings that work to tell an engaging, gothic, and gruesome story. Just like Weapons, it's told from multiple perspectives, with the first half being told from Victor's point of view, and the second coming from the creatures, and the decision to do so really paints a picture of both characters, as well as who's the monster and who's the man. Though I think some of the messaging there is a bit heavy-handed. What I like about both perspectives though is that it never feels like we're chugging along with the film, besides the small chapter of Victor's childhood. The process to get to the creation of Victor's monster and the people he meets along the way are immensely intriguing, along with the lingering questions and worries of why someone would even want to create life. I love the dialogue written by Del Toro here, and it's so intriguing with every scene, and I love the constant debates and arguments that linger throughout this section. I really hope this can strike up a Best Adapted Screenplay nominee. And the second act following after Victor and the creature's departure, we see how that life Victor created can change, evolve, be torn apart by the world and grief, and even come to acceptance with the fact that he's alive. The performance given by Jacob Elordi here as the creature is one of my favorites of the year. I really think he should be a frontrunner for the Oscar. And Oscar Isaac, while not on the same level, is still great as Victor, probably the best performance I've seen from him. Mia Goth is great with her dual roles and the costume design is on point. Christoph Waltz is entertaining with his short time on screen. And David Bradley had some of my favorite moments as this sweet blind guy the creature meets. His scenes are some of my favorites and are the catalyst for the creature's growth. This whole story is an incredible one about the growth of human character, the identities we make for ourselves, and, generational trauma. This is so sad, Alexa. Play Daddy Issues by Kendrick Lamar. Overall, this is a great gothic piece and another solid addition to Del Toro's filmography. I'm definitely going to watch his other films this year because this is just impeccable. The highest grossing animated film of all time also happens to be the best animated film out of this year's lineup. If you've heard anything about this movie, it was its box office record. In a little less than a month, the film became the highest grossing Chinese, non-Hollywood, and animated film of all time. But besides the box office success, it's also a genuine triumph of a film that does so much with its runtime and world that I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Ne Zha 2 left me speechless by the end, with stunning action scenes, engaging character arcs, and a shift in tone that allows us to build off the original in a way most Western animated films never would. The first half, while nowhere near the quality of the second, feels like we're right back in the world established by the first film, with all its faults. But even so, the first half fixes some of these issues along with a notable jump in animation quality, while also having all the characters continuing their stories in ways that make sense with the first film. And the world feels more lived in with new threats coming into place. It ups the stakes immediately, and by the time the main conflict for the first half is established, I knew I was in for a treat. And then that shift happens about halfway through, and the tone becomes more dark, more vengeful. The jokes start to slow down and we follow Ne Zha as the entire world is flipped upside down. And as this happens, the world around him is rendered in this utterly transcendent way. The visual spectacle of the first action sequence locked me in. The action throughout is unlike anything I've ever seen in animation. It reminds me of the Lord of the Rings trilogy with so many different moving elements and grand battles. The art direction makes it top-notch. So many of the big action scenes are accompanied by massive armies. The climax had armies so big they looked like crashing waves comparable to that of God's wrath in a John Martin painting. I can't imagine how long it took to render some scenes here because so many shots look like absolute art someone could frame and put up as decoration. But even if the visuals were handcrafted by the modern day Picasso, the story had to be engaging for it to be as high as it is on this list. Luckily, the story happens to be handcrafted by the modern day Shakespeare of animation. And that feels weird to say because it's like this is an Eastern made movie and I'm just talking about guys from like the West. There's one element of the story where Ne Zha gives control over to Ao Bing, which starts mostly during fight scenes, but at one moment where he meets his older brothers for the first time, he lets Ao Bing take control because he doesn't believe he's good enough for them. And it's honestly hard to watch as he makes this decision, but as the film goes on and his world is shattered, he realizes the system that's been using him this whole time is corrupted, and if he's ever going to be accepted, he's got to change that system. But he doesn't have to do it by himself. I love this film, both for its incredible action and for the moments where it can slow down and let us really feel what these characters are going through. On top of everything in this movie, there's even a small allegory for anti-colonialism that I really love. Bottom line is, the highest grossing animated film in history deserves this spot and then some. An absolute blast from start to finish. It is a bit lengthy and the comedy isn't all hits. To be frank, I think it's mostly misses. But the story, the animation, the fight choreography, the characters, and the entertaining Chinese mythos are enough to keep your eyes glued the entire time. I would say we'll watch this one sweep at the Oscars, but they didn't even send it in for nominations. Yeah, Ne Zha 2, this historic animated film, wasn't sent in for nominations in a single award category. Whoever was in charge of that, you're fired. Also, I watched the English dub, and it's crazy how Michelle Yeoh was better here than she was in both Wicked movies. I adore this franchise more than I would my own wife. The first Knives Out is one of my favorite films ever. It's probably my comfort movie. And the second is one of my favorites of 2022, although it is notably weaker than the first. This one takes the strengths of both films and runs with them, while also sticking out as its own thing. Each film in this trilogy has its own vibe, and this one lands on its feet and brings about said vibe with an incredible case for Benoit Blanc to solve. It may be my favorite case he's attempted to crack so far. The cinematography is top-notch, the score is just as bombastic with the violins as the first two, the ensemble cast is great, even if some characters could have been given more time, and the themes are something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. They aren't necessarily confusing themes, but they have so many details and little things that captivate me with what it's trying to say. It's not an inherently pro or anti-religion film, but it sees the good that religion can offer people while not being afraid to call out the issues with the church, religious systems, and how people in and around the church can do harmful and hateful things in the name of their divine Lord and Savior. As someone who was raised in the church with his dad running the youth ministry and his mom leading the choir, a lot of stuff here really hit home for me. I do believe in God, but I can't stand how some religious people behave and encourage violent, hateful rhetoric like Josh Brolin's pastor character here. There's a lot of fear-mongering within some religious communities, and a lot of things I personally can't stand. It's something that really made me take a step back from religion for a while. But this film finds a way to say that, yes, religion can be a horrible thing and has justified so much prejudice and vitriol and terrible things throughout history, and it hurts so many people. But it can also be one of the joys of life and heal so many people and be the reasoning behind why you are the person you are, flaws and all. I'm going to avoid spoilers because it's best to go into this film blind, but I like how even though one character is primarily facing a lot of religious trauma and fear-mongering, both being a part of it and a victim of it, they still find comfort in their religion as they pass. They were brought up in the church and they lived as an active member of it and were willing to do anything to see it succeed and sin not act as a temptation, disregarding what sins were done by them for that greater good of the church. That's Rian Johnson's writing. I teared up in the end, a way I never expected to from these Benoit Blanc movies. Overall, I love Wake Up Dead Man and everything it has to say. Top-notch film from a top-notch trilogy. I'd say it's better than Glass Onion, but nothing will ever top that first film. I will watch Daniel Craig in these till he's 90. I've spoken plenty about why I love Superman, but I still don't feel like that's enough. Remember earlier in this video when I talked about hate speech? This film acts as the exact antithesis to that. In a world surrounded by hate, unjustified prejudice, vitriol, rich, power-hungry devils having a stranglehold on society, and governments trying to do anything they can to oppress other people, one man in red and blue tights shines as this beacon of utter hope, as he was made to do by his two Jewish creators in the time of Nazi Germany. And even when he's beaten and bruised, his home is broken into, and his loved ones are killed just by being tied to him, he still holds onto his hope and brings it to the people of his city and the world when they need it most. This one man with the power to do good uses his gifts to give everyday people the hope to keep moving forward, to keep being human. And it's a message that came to me when I needed it most. I've definitely struggled with my mental health this year, and there were plenty of moments where I didn't have much hope. But walking out of that theater, I had some strange chord struck in me that I forgot was there. Superman reminded me to be a better person. When I saw the Batman in 2022, I felt a sense of sad relatability to the character. But here, I wanted to see myself in Superman. I wanted to be that beacon of hope for people in my life and remind myself, even when things seem impossibly stacked against me, that being human means getting back up. Also, it's just nice to have a superhero movie that's, they put journalism in the superhero movie. Marvel, please take notes. Yeah, I've been in love with Superman since I first saw it, and it's everything that I want out of a superhero movie, even if it isn't perfect. I'm not the biggest fan of the last act. A few of the effects look a tad bit wonky, and I do wish Gunn had kept the week in the life of day cards that test audiences didn't like for some reason. But for everything that could have been improved on, there's some small detail or action done that makes Superman stand out and adds to its themes. I've rewatched it twice since it came out and watched individual scenes so many times over, and every time I find some detail to fall in love with. I doubt I would be the person I am today without James Gunn. His entire career, from the Guardians trilogy to his past 4 years with DC, to even his time writing those Scooby-Doo movies, have all made me the person I am now, and I owe him everything. Thank you, Gunn. Thank you, DC. Thank you, Corn Sweat. This is exactly what I needed, and I could not be happier that this is my Superman. I'm gonna level with y'all. I hesitated to put this in the number 2 spot. It felt like a disservice to put a film that I adored literally everything about, and one that resonated with me this much, only in the number 2 spot. So let's just say this and the mystery number 1 spot are tied, which makes sense because they're the only 10 out of 10 films that I saw this year. So let's talk about Marty Supreme. I have struggled writing for these top 2 spots, but I think I've got it figured out. I've always been a very ambitious person, whether it be with this channel, with my photography that I started in April, with my academics or whatever. I've always felt a need to go above and beyond to make myself known and make a name for myself. But even though I've hung my own head high, I try to keep myself humble in between my ambition. Marty is the exact opposite. He looks down on humility, only ever thinking about his face on the cover of that Wheaties box. He's a man whose ambition outweighs every other thing going for him, from his relationships to responsibilities to the chaos that he gets himself into due to that said ambition. He's a man who believes he's the peak of human anatomy, but there's taller mountains around him showing more ambition with higher peaks, but he can't comprehend that. That wasn't a good metaphor, ignore me. But despite all that, you still feel for Marty because he's every one of us. I think this film came out at the perfect moment in time. You pair this story of ambition and pride with an actor who's constantly striving to be one of the greats, and you share it with a generation that's craving more with their lives. To me, Gen Z is one of the most ambitious generations, possibly due to content creators we see every day online, or because everything is at our fingertips due to advancements in technology. And for a lot of us, including myself, we're not one of the greats. My theater was packed with people between my age and Chalamet's, not a single soul older than him, and every person in that room felt some small connection with this man in pursuit of greatness. You know how I can tell? Because his film got an applause by the time the credits were rolling. I've never had a film be applauded in my 18 years of going to the theater. And it deserves it because Marty Supreme is an absolute masterpiece. I adore practically everything about this film. The themes are so real and connective. You can't help but feel for Chalamet and his cast as both his ambitions and their dreams and ambitions are built up and broken down. Obviously, Chalamet's performance is utterly supreme, but the rest of the cast is just as great. Odessa is one of my favorite performances of the year. I'm glad she's getting some award recognition, even if she didn't get a Best Supporting Actress nominee. She and Chalamet have impeccable chemistry with one another, and you can see how much she wants to make this work, even when Marty is checked out. And on top of them, you have Gwyneth Paltrow, Abel Ferreira, Emery Cohen, Kevin O'Leary are all great, but Tyler, the Creator, was a highlight, dude. And seeing his success over this past year has been such a delight. He really has some great acting chops, and I really want to see him in more roles in the future. I wish he was in more of this, but this movie has a lot to juggle, so it's not a big complaint for me. It's shaking you at times and cramping you into enclosed spaces with too many characters, and that adds to the uneasy feeling that ambition creates. I haven't seen the Safdie brothers' other films, but I can tell that they both know what pride can do to a person, and what this film has to say about that works wonders. Marty Supreme truly is something supreme, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. What a ride, what a joy, what a performance. Can't wait to see Timmy win, is what I would say if this number 1 spot didn't exist. Remember earlier when I was talking about K-pop Demon Hunters when I said one other film besides that defined 2025? Well, Sinners was 2025's definitive film. It may not have made the most money, but whenever we look back on this year, Sinners is what we'll think of. 16 nominations, people are scoffing at that. It got it for a reason, big dog. A film where music, comedy, racial commentary, real-world history, horror, action, genre, and the 1930s period piece setting blend together to create something utterly euphoric. I love when a movie is hyped up so much, and it still manages to exceed your expectations. There's something magical about this film that Coogler and his creative team did, because this movie packs so much in such a small package, yet it never feels like it's trying too hard. There's so many inventive ideas, incredible visuals, and utterly transcendent moments that define this film, that define my love for filmmaking as a medium. I Lied to You is an incredible piece, and the camera work paired with the choreography makes 5 minutes straight of pure magic, and it all comes to a halt when Remick and his vampires walk up to that barn. For 40 minutes, you build up this entertaining cast only to show that smile, telling you that everything you've cared about up to this point is about to come crashing down. And it does. And the film gets better from there. There's so much I can analyze and over-explain and compare and talk about, but I'd just be repeating the same shtick you've heard a million times from people who know how to write better than I do. You know why this movie's been praised unlike any other this year? The IMAX formatting is expired, and Autumn Durrell deserves her flowers. I can't wait to see her win, bro. It's gonna be so good. Oh my god. The first woman to run an IMAX camera does this. The script has so many callbacks and proper foreshadowing that makes it a delight on rewatch. Coogler even found a way to blend some genuinely unsettling moments with some good comedy. The entire cast is working on another level here. Michael B. Jordan was phenomenal as both Smoke and Stack, and their relationship is put on full display, along with their differences from the get-go. Haley Steinfeld works wonders with her screen time. She has some surprisingly emotional moments and some, nasty ones. Miles Canton delivered one of my favorite performances of the year, and I can't wait to see where the rest of his career goes. Apparently, he worked as a backup singer for her and then auditioned for this movie. Wunmi Masaku, Yao, Lee Yun Lee, and the whole rest of the cast are great too. But Jack O'Connell, man. Oh my god, he genuinely might be my favorite villain performance of the year. He finds the right blend of charismatic and maniacal energy, and I love the choice to make an Irish man, a member of a community that's faced persecution and weren't even seen as white when first coming to America, be the main threat here. The Irish were forced to convert under English and Scottish Protestant settlers, kind of like how the slaves were forced to convert their religious views under the Christian and Catholic Europeans, which is something Coogler pointed out in several interviews, and something Slim tells Preacher Boy before I Lied to You. It's clear that Remick has his own culture, and his entire character and plan here are very much a metaphor for assimilation annihilation, something the Irish, indigenous people, Asian Americans, and the African American community all faced. I'm not making it a competition. The Irish definitely had it the easiest. I've wanted to get closer with my Irish roots this year, and I've mainly done it through reading Irish poetry and watching more films with Irish actors and directors, but I still feel a craving to get closer with the culture of my ancestors. I mean, yeah, that culture is just white people and a lack of potatoes, but so much of Irish culture was assimilated to European culture when they colonized and conquered the land, and a lot of it's been lost to time. I love how this movie shows Irish representation while also using the character of Remick as an entertaining antagonist and as an allegory for the things his people face from both a religious and immigrant perspective. His Irish accent only ever comes out when he's singing and when he says the Lord's Prayer at the end of the film, and his monologue after parallels real-world history and Sammy's journey with religion throughout the film. By this point, you should know religious subtexts are just a thing I'll eat up when done right. I also love how so much of this film's mythos is based on real-world history and how it comments, critiques, and connects these cultures. That's the power that cinema was made to have, and the power movie theaters have always had. Please note, I said movie theaters. Netflix is gonna ruin everything. All in all, this movie does so much with deeper meaning and entertaining scenes and historic imagery, cultural parallelism, stunning music, phenomenal visuals, and an ensemble cast and crew working on another caliber. Sinners truly is a remarkable piece of art, one that I will dedicate a whole video to eventually, and the best film that I saw in 2025. So please, for the love of God, let it win more than just score an original song. Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't really have anything to say. 2025, big year, great year. Very proud of myself, very proud of this channel, even if there wasn't as much growth as I really wanted. And I'm very excited for all the things I have planned for this new year. And I'm very thankful for you guys, if at this point, if you're still watching, which I mean, I doubt, but you know, it helps. Yeah, see you guys for the Valentine's Day video essay. Is it gonna be peak? I don't know.